Hi there Dolly Mixtures. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about Spellcraft because why not? I know a lot of witchy people watch, so I'm going to impart some advice. It's not intended to be dogmatic, it's really just supposed to be a random winding discourse with regard to stuff that I've learned and ways that I've kind of tweaked things over the years. And I'd be interested in getting your opinions on any of the stuff that I talk about in this video, as usual of course. The first thing I wanted to talk to you guys about was getting into the right mindset to do spellcraft. I've found on and off through my life that I kind of convince myself beyond all reasonable doubt that it's not the right time, that the energies aren't potent enough, that I'm not kind of ready to do it and have it come to fruition. And I think sometimes when that stuff gets cyclical, it's actually a form of self-doubt. You really have to believe in your power. You have to believe in your power to manifest something and to bring the energies to the table that you want, and to direct energy and to make sure that everything good is in the circle, if indeed you do cast out a circle. And so sometimes you can convince yourself that you need to wait, and in fact waiting becomes stagnating and you don't get much of anything done. In fact, what I've learned about spellcraft and my witchy pursuits, as well as about everything else in life, is that procrastination and perfectionism are very closely linked. They're kind of like cousins. A lot of the time we accuse ourselves of laziness, or we accuse ourselves of not doing what we set out to do, but in fact we are not doing it, we're resisting doing it because we convince ourselves it won't be perfect, it won't be right, it won't be potent enough. And in actual fact, that's kind of a mindset that you really need to get over in order to get stuff done. And I'm not just talking about spellcraft, I'm talking about anything that you want to do to pursue your position, if you like, as a witch, and to actually grow and to actually evolve and learn. Sometimes you need to come out of that mindset. I also think that it's important to arrive at a mindset at which you are connected to your core. When I talk about going to the core of me, I'm really talking about being balanced and being one with myself and being with myself and being true to myself and knowing that I want whatever is in alignment with my highest good. Sometimes I, like most people on the planet, get myself into certain moods, like I'm resentful or I'm angry or I feel like doing something really spontaneous. And I'm not talking about like breaking the threefold law or anything like that. I'm just talking about the energies that I know that I'm bringing into the circle with me, the internal stuff that is actually going to permeate and absorb what I'm doing with my intention if I don't sort it out first. So I often feel like if you are working spellcraft out of some kind of rage or some kind of resentment, or if you're doing it while you're really, really upset, while you're grieving something, that's not often the best, right? Because you are not balanced and you're not usually interested in what's in alignment with the highest good, or alternatively, you're not going to be bringing the best version of you to the table. So I often feel like it's important to know where your core is and how to get there. And for me, meditation was instrumental in that way, as many of you already know. And I feel like going out into the green places and just going out into transpersonal experience, opening myself up to it, inviting it, surrendering to it, and really releasing that sense of being separate from it and being divorced from it. I think that really helped me to learn how to get to my core, and that's where I want to be when I start spell work. I want to feel completely strong. I want to feel rooted, like there's a rod going straight through me that starts right at the base chakra and shoots right up into the nexus chakras, and that's what I'm really looking for. And I'm looking to be with myself and be with my intention and understand my intention, and just really be able to talk to myself, tune in with myself. I'm not separate from myself. I'm not cut off. There's no disconnection there. That to me is really important when I'm going into a working. I also wanted to say, with regard to getting into the right mindset, that it really helps if you have certain correspondences, that you connect with certain kind of workings that you're going to be doing. For example, so many witches favour the lunar cycle as a way to navigate their way through which times would be most appropriate and potent for certain kinds of spellcraft. For example, you might do abundance manifestation on the full moon, or as the moon is becoming full, and you might do release work and shadow work the reverse time, that kind of thing. Or on the new moon, of course, would be a perfect time, I think, to do shadow work, and I have planned my shadow mapping process for clients around the new moon quite often. Sometimes I get a different intuitive sense of what's necessary, but quite often it will be the new moon. So that's interesting too, and people use other astrological connections, and people also obviously choose to do certain workings at certain points on the wheel of the year for that theme, for that correspondence, which is so connected to our human energy. That's why the wheel of the year resonates so much, right? Because it really is often in alignment with what's going on in the outer world and therefore in the inner world. It's that as within, so without thing, as above, so below. So it often makes sense to connect what you're going to do in your calendar, if you like, of workings with the wheel of the year, and that can be useful too. But I would say that often it can be interesting as well to do spontaneous spellcraft. I know there's a big debate about this, and I completely appreciate why that debate takes place, but quite often sometimes you'll find that you are completely aligned with the intention of what you want to do in the moment. There's just a moment that comes upon you where you feel like potency is there, and you feel like everything has just clicked into place like a jigsaw, and you kind of think, well, why not now? And you just do it. And it's like an instant call to manifestation almost. You maybe get some words of power that are just going around in your head, and you just do it. You just stand in that power, and you feel that rod that I was talking about earlier, just going up and down, just connecting everything. And I think that can be really interesting too. And I think it's interesting that there doesn't need to be any bells and whistles for that. Not that there does anyway. And I think most witches would argue that a lot of the tools and a lot of the stuff that we use, that's all correspondence, that's all connection, that's all kind of head to heart connection, that feeling of actually being able to see something and connect that to what's going on within and what you want to manifest. I personally feel that objects themselves are sacred and important and sacrosanct, but I think most witches go for that view that you know, the only tool you need is the mind, and I agree with that in so much as I totally believe I could work powerful spellcraft without any of the bells and whistles, as I call them. But I also feel that things in their own right hold energies, and I think that's something that most witches could get down with too. So for me, I kind of feel like there's that middle place on that spectrum where I know that the mind is the most potent tool, but I also feel a certain connection and a certain affection for the tools that I use. But that's not to say that I would be lost without my props, because I wouldn't, and I'm quite comfortable in knowing that for myself. I'm kind of not sure where I was going with that. um, on the subject of an altar, a place where you kind of keep certain things that you use for your craft and for the things that you're doing and the things you're trying to achieve, I would say it's really helped me to have a permanent altar again after all of this time. I've had one again now for about a year, maybe a little over a year, and before that I didn't really have a space to do workings and to have reflection for quite a long time. I kind of strayed from the path. I think it wasn't that I ever kind of denounced the word that was attached to it or my sense of self with regard to it, but I just wasn't actively doing it, and I wasn't recognising the wheel of the year and such. And when I actually set up a permanent altar again for the first time in a long time, it was kind of really empowering. It felt like I had a place where I could go to connect to the core and to connect to what the word witch actually means to me, and also just to recalibrate and to feel like there's a certain energy here which I've manifested, which I have charged, which I'm maintaining, which I can actually allow to envelop me, and that's my time. That's my time to be the most potent spiritual being that I can be, and to kind of connect with my sense of what's possible, with my sense of potential and empowerment. So that for me, it has been amazing and really, really good. And I don't know, I'm sure many other witches feel the same way, that it's really, I don't want to say important to have a permanent altar, because again, it harks back to that debate about whether or not objects really mean anything, and I can appreciate that debate, obviously, from a logical point of view, but I'm not into the purely transcendental. It's not my thing. For me, paganism was so attractive because it didn't denigrate the earthly realm, and because we could speak of the energies that objects held, and because we could speak of their power and the way we could use them. So for me, I don't really feel that way, but I do feel that there is something really energizing about having a permanent place where you go to be a witch. And of course you are a witch at all times, and I will get to that, but you know, where you go to actually recalibrate, to actually go back to the core. And even if it's just for a daily meditation or a little bit of altar cleansing or whatever, I think that it's really helped me, and it's something that I would like to not do without again, although of course things change, and I will let you know as I progress and as the years go on, because I hope to be making videos for a very long time yet. I would say that one interesting thing for me about being a witch is that it's really intriguing to watch myself help people with their problems and overcome their obstacles from the perspective of someone who practices the craft. So like, this is just for an example, a very excuse me, a very close friend of mine was recently going through a very, very difficult breakup. And she rang me completely stressed out, in tears, didn't know what the hell to do. And this was when her partner that she'd broken up with had just moved out of the house. And my instant thing that I said to her, and it just came out of my mouth, I said, I need to come round and together we need to tidy the room. We need to sort out your bedroom. We need to sort out any place in the house where it kind of reminds you of the time that you spent with him. And the bedroom was kind of very much their place. You know, he had his clothes all over it, and it was kind of it was a place that was dominated by his energy, I would argue, and she didn't actually really enjoy to spend time in her room. It wasn't a place where she spent time when he was living there. So my instant advice was, I will come round and we will completely blitz your bedroom, and we will make it into a place for you. We'll make it into your palace. And inside my mind, I was thinking, energy realignment. We're going to shove out all of that energy. We're gonna cleanse. And of course I didn't do that because, you know, she doesn't share my belief system, and kind of she totally respects my belief system, but it wouldn't have made sense for her to encourage her to energetically cleanse, wouldn't have really linked together. But the fact that I was so instantly, look, we need to do this, we need to tidy the room, we need to get rid of all his stuff that he didn't take with him, we need to organise all of your clothes, anything you don't want anymore we need to recycle, we need to do this, we need to, like, in my mind that was coming from a witchy place. That was coming from a place of, I know that there's funky energy in there, and that you need to actually be able to sit in there and just be with your core. And it's hard for you to do that with all of these battling energies and all of these memories and all of this stuff, which is, you know, around, it's lying around, it's cosmic debris. Thanks, Frank Zappa, I stole that from you. It's cosmic debris, and we need to clear it. And that, to me, that piece of advice came from a witchy perspective. And of course I went round there the next day and we sorted out everything. We had new bedding on the bed, we moved the bed around so there was more room. And for me, that's just a way of bringing healing, bringing that element of knowing, understanding what energy does, what space means, what happens when stuff is in flux, when stuff isn't in alignment, what that does to the human brain, what that does to the psyche and the spirit. Knowing that and having that as a core part of my spirituality allowed me in that moment to help somebody else when they needed it, in a really pragmatic way, but with a very, very spiritual undertone to it. And that really interested me. And I would urge anybody who has taken the word witch, I would urge anyone in that position to notice the ways in which you bring that into your tangible life, you bring that into your outer reality, you bring that into your relationships with people. The ways in which you help people are so often inspired by what you do in your circle and what you know to be true in your heart, and the way you approach your life from a spiritual perspective. That stuff bleeds outwards in the most beautiful way. And it's really inspiring to see that coming from me. And so I would just posit to you the advice that it would be really cool to check in with the ways in which you do that in your life, the ways you help people through what you know. And it's never dogmatic, and it's never with a view to changing anybody's idea. It's literally just about bringing yourself to the table, taking your power out of the circle and scattering it everywhere like fairy dust. A lot of the advice that you give, a lot of the plans of action that you put into place will be as a direct result of what you've learned and how you've evolved as a witch. So that's something that I would say is really, really cool. I wanted to talk about words, using words in spellcraft, and what I've learned and how I've evolved over time in that sense. First of all, I wanted to say that I used to think that I needed to be as specific as possible. I read in a lot of books very cautionary elements of these books, warnings, kind of saying like, you need to make sure that you're very specific, you need to make sure that you don't invite anything that you didn't mean to invite, and all that kind of thing. And actually what I've come to learn is that language is quite fallible. Language is, I mean, the English language is one of the most, what I would call a paint box language. You really can do a lot with it. It's a mongrel language, it's a mishmash of different stuff, and I love that about it. And I think, though, even so, any language can kind of be infallible or slightly inflexible, or you won't mean exactly what you want it to mean or whatever. So I think one thing to note is caveats and addendums have worked wonders for me. I still aim to be as specific as possible, but I also appreciate the value of caveats and addendums. So for example, I might choose to say something like I might be specific about my intention and then say, I want to manifest this or something better, or bring into being this or something better, or whatever it is. So I'm being specific and I'm kind of aligning with those energies that I want to align with, but I'm also not ruling out the idea that I might have brought some funky stuff into the equation with the words I've used, and therefore I correct it with this caveat. And that's kind of how I do things in that sense. I also like to do things like I like to set my intention and confirm my desire, but then say something like, let the perfect resources come at the perfect time. And this is really an acknowledgement that what the ego wants isn't always what the spirit needs. And this is something that was really potent for me in spellcrafting as I got older, was that I realised that actually by being very specific about what I want and the way I want it to manifest and all of this stuff, I'm actually not allowing for the fact that sometimes my ego just hasn't got it right. That isn't the way it's supposed to come to pass, and that wouldn't be in my highest good. Actually, there are a ton of possibilities that I haven't been creative enough to see, or I'm too stressed out to take into account, or that don't really sit right with me, but actually could work wonders for the situation. And therefore now I kind of allow the universe, if you like, I allow the energies of the universe to align in the way which is for my highest good. And that's another thing I use in alignment with my highest good. So I might be really specific about my desire and about the way I want it to come to pass, but then I will state the caveat only in alignment with my highest good. And this again is something that is very useful because words to me can sometimes be a trap. I think that's why the books were so kind of cautionary about it. But actually I don't think fear-mongering needs to take place. I think it's really easy. I think it's really, really easy to potentially rectify anything which you might have potentially said a little bit ham-fistedly, or you might have potentially brought into being in a way which is too narrow, or in a way which doesn't allow for the changes that might take place in your life tomorrow after you've done the spell and things change or whatever. I think it's really easy to allow addendums and caveats to do the work for you, to ensure that you're only bringing stuff to you which is in alignment with your highest good, and sometimes just to get rid of the specifics. To get rid of the specifics and just set the intention, connect with the desire, and then say perfect resources, perfect time, it is done, thank you, show me. That's it. You know, that's it. That's master manifesting. And then, of course, go about doing everything on the tangible realm to bring that into being. Peter J. Carroll said that one of the greatest mistakes people make, really, in spellcraft is the assumption that after you've cast your spell, you don't need to do anything on the tangible realm, or even that it's a sign of failure if you try and put stuff together in the tangible realm to make it happen. When, in fact, spellcraft is just a jump start. You know, it's like eating a power salad before you go for a run. You still have to go for the run, but you've eaten the right stuff, you've put the right fuel in there, and to me that's what it's really all about. It's not about me sitting on my arse waiting for those energies that I kind of lined up to come and like do something for me. No, it's about living with that same intention out of the circle, and that's how it works, you know, because I need to be lined up with the energy that I want to bring into being too. I need to have that dial switched so that I can receive, so that I'm open to receiving. If I'm not putting out the correct intention or the correct energy, the correct vibe outside of the circle, then, you know, it very may well not work, because I'm not going to be drawing those things to me. So I have to be open to it. And for me, the best way to be open to what I've requested is to look like I'm showing up and ready to receive it, right? To look like I'm at that moment where I'm prepared to receive it because I'm already taking action. So for me, that's important too. A few more things about words I wanted to say. I've got some notes here, but they're really scrappy and like not very well put together. I wanted to say, think about the words that really inspire you. I've talked about this in former videos as well. In my Chaos Magic and Daily Practice video, I talked about different poetry that I appreciate, different ways of saying things that I appreciate. And when you first start picking up books about spellcraft and witchcraft, you might come across this very archaic language where they suggest that you say you do spells to invite words like thou and thee and whither and hither and all that kind of thing. And actually that just might not connect very well with you, obviously, because you don't live in Shakespearean times. You don't live in Elizabethan England, so why would it? And sometimes it's really important to just speak from the heart, or even just to use more post-structuralist forms of poetic language and connect words together in a way that really connects to your potency and makes you feel magical and makes you feel really alive. Words that you have experienced, that you found wondrous. For me, it would largely be the beat poets and the beat writers like Kerouac, Allen Ginsberg, Hunky, Burroughs. I can't think of any more right now for some reason, but loads of them. There's loads of them. And the way they put words together, that very post-structuralist, very surreal, very spacey, very unapologetically weird way of fracturing language with a hammer and then sellotaping it back together, that to me is beautiful. And so that will be most often what will come up in my circle. And also think a little bit about whether you want to speak out loud in your spellcraft or whether you want to do it in your head, because I tend to find that things are different for me at different times. I'm actually one to kind of talk to myself when I'm on my own. So say, for example, I'm sat alone in a room and I suddenly remember I need to do something. I won't just get up and do it. I'll say out loud, oh, I forgot to do that. So I kind of talk to myself when I'm on my own. And I actually, when I was very young, and I used to pretend to be a witch a lot of the time. I know I've spoken about this in my Witchy Thoughts video. I used to pretend to be a witch a lot of the time. And my mum said to me, you used to talk into a mirror and put your long, like, Halloween plastic witchy fingers on, because I love them. I still have them now. Waiting for Samhain, wishing the days away. Who else is? I am. But yeah, I've got my like long witchy fingers, and I had them, and I would talk into the mirror. My mum said, I don't remember this, but I used to talk into the mirror and do incantations into the mirror with my crazy nails on and my crazy nose on and stuff. And so that was actually a big indicator for me as I got older, that the inner child actually responds, in my case, very much to the power and the majesty of hearing my own voice say things of power out loud. So often I will say things out loud with spellcraft, but there are times when I don't. There are times, particularly when I'm sending healing intention, where it actually makes more sense to close my eyes and go through the prayer beads and actually just think on the words and really breathe in and out and inhale and exhale the vibration that I'm bringing to me from a cerebral point of view, but actually maybe not saying. Quite often not saying. So you can actually choose, you can pick and choose, you can move between the two, and that's a really interesting thing. So I thought I would mention that. And I would say also get comfortable and get creative with words. If you're the kind of person that isn't really comfortable speaking out loud, or not really comfortable with stringing a sentence, or you don't really feel like you're massively articulate in any way, then I would suggest just trying to get comfortable with the notion that words and language can be so powerful. It can help you to manifest things in such a fiery, exciting, impactful way. And just get comfortable with the words you're using. Don't force yourself to use archaic language or defunct, obsolete terms if they make you feel weird, if you feel corny, if you feel like it's not really working for you, then it's not really holding the vibration that you want to go for, so don't bother with it, you know. That's what I would always say. And there's a couple more things I wanted to say. Yeah, what I wanted to say was, with regard to the results of your spellcraft, things may come in another form to the form that you expected. I often feel like actually the process of doing a spell in itself connects you with the notion of possibility. Quite often, what we need, or what we want, or the pathway towards getting either of those things, is actually right in front of us. It's right in front of our eyes. It's already taking place. It's already taking shape. The clues are already there. The dots are ready to be connected, but we don't see them. So what I feel is happening sometimes when we put a spell into being is that we're actually casting a spell on ourselves to actually, how can I put this? Like we are putting ourselves we're actually putting an enchantment on ourselves. That's what I'd say. We're allowing ourselves to open up our own eyes and to see new possibilities, to connect those dots that were actually always there, but which we just weren't enabling ourselves to see. We weren't looking at it from the right angle. We weren't taking it from the right standpoint. And what's so exciting about the craft is that actually what we're doing is we're putting an enchantment on ourselves. We're allowing ourselves to see things in a new light, to actually clear the cosmic debris. I did it again, Frank, thank you so much. Clearing the cosmic debris from our eyes and seeing things in a whole new way, and actually being able to connect those things together. So quite often stuff comes in a different form than the form that we had actually requested it, but that doesn't necessarily mean that things happened wrongly. Remember, caveats and addendums, as I've stated before, but quite often that was the way things were always supposed to take shape, and literally we just didn't see it. Things just sometimes come in a different package, or things sometimes take a longer time to come together, ordinarily sometimes because our spellcraft has gotten in the way. If we've been too specific, and we've insisted upon our ego's representation of what's right, when in fact the pathway would have been easier and shorter and more direct if we hadn't have been so specific about what we wanted. You know, that winding route that we wanted, that we insisted upon in our spell, but actually there's this really clear pathway right there that goes towards it, but we just couldn't see it. So sometimes being too specific in Spellcraft actually gets in the way of a pathway that was far clearer and far easier, that we just in our humanness did not see. So that's something to think about too. And finally, I wanted to say that it's good to be able to ask to connect to possibilities, you know. Sometimes if you accept that something is right in front of you and you just can't connect the dots, do what you would do in a tarot reading. Just sit down and be open to new possibilities. Be open to something that you may not have thought of. That is something that is so powerful, I think, and so potent. It's actually just being humble. It's bringing your humility to it, and it's kind of recognizing that in a way you're just changing up your energetic field so that you can be open and so that you can respond to stuff that you were shut off to before. And I think that's a really cool thing. So really, all in all, that's what I wanted to say for now, but there probably will be more videos of this nature in the future, and I would love to know what you think of these concepts or what your experiences have been. Much love, blessed be. Nothing is true, everything is permitted. Chaos Witch style.